I wasn't a math major in college, but is 32 out of 32 a bad thing?
Get that stuff out of here! It's Southwest Bias!
Welcome into Southwest Bias, brought to you by our friends at Branded Bills. Elevate your brand with the perfect headwear and apparel. Use the promo code PHNX for 20% off your first purchase. I don't know about you, but if I had come home with a bad report card, I would have been in some trouble. Look, my parents weren't mean. In fact, they were encouraging in most situations. But bad grades were bad grades. But they did have one thing that they told me. One time having a bad grade in a class that you tried your best in is okay. But if you come home with multiple bad grades and multiple report cards, there's going to be hell to pay. For the third straight season, the Arizona Cardinals have come home with bad grades on the NFL Players Association's report card. In fact, the grades were so bad this year, they ranked dead last in the NFL. Yeah, dead last. Not great, Bob. If I had come home with dead last grades in my class, I don't think I would have been sleeping real well that night. But like I said, for the third straight season, the Cardinals have been in the bottom half, actually the bottom quadrant of the entire NFL. In 2023, they ranked 31st in the NFL on the report card. In 2024, they got slightly better. They ranked 27th. But as I mentioned, this year, in 2025, the report card just came home. And what the parents have to sign, or in this case, the fans, is the 32nd worst. Dead last in the NFL in terms of the ways the players viewed the organization in specific categories. Those categories include treatment of families, food and cafeteria, nutrition and dietitian, locker room, training staff, weight room, strength coaches, team travel, head coach, and ownership. For 3 straight years, multiple categories have been in the D's and the F's. Now, credit to head coach Jonathan Gannon, who's been A for the last 2 years, and so that's not an issue here. But what has been is the weight room, the locker room, the food and cafeteria, and the treatment of families. And as a result of all that, ownership. In 2025, treatment of families was a D+, food and dining was a D-, locker room was an F, training room was a D-, weight room was an F, team travel was a B, not bad, head coach, as I mentioned, was an A, and ownership was a D- after previously being an F the season before. To their credit, on Wednesday, after the grades dropped, the Cardinals did announce that they're planning on building a $100 million training facility on the current spot in Tempe where their training facility is, and it should be ready by the year 2027. They released the following statement. Our goal is to provide the best environment, facilities, and resources to give our team the greatest opportunity to succeed. We are working hard to achieve that. Last season, we shared with our players the plans for a new training facility at the existing Tempe location with a targeted completion date of 2027. We've hired Rossetti, a leading architecture firm that has worked with a number of NFL teams on their new facilities, and the design process is underway. We will continue to explore all the other ways, large and small, that we can get better in every single area of our operation. That's great, and I applaud them for actually making the changes. But why did it take so long to do so? And why did you only announce it once the NFLPA dropped another failing grade on you? For a franchise that's had its documented problems, rehabilitating your image should be priority number one. And where should that start? Within the walls of your own facility, I'd imagine. Owner Michael Bidwill has continued to face heat over the last handful of years based on accusations of improprieties within the organization. He's denied those accusations, including the latest that came out this month from his former assistant, Brittany Neuheisel, who claimed that he harassed her about her family, asked her to break federal law, among other things. Look, Bidwill very well may be innocent of every accusation ever made against him. But the problem is the court of public opinion won't care. Perception is reality, and the perception outside his building and apparently inside it is about as rosy as a garden in Antarctica right now. Goodwill is fleeting, and to Michael Bidwill's credit, he's had a lot more success on the field than his father did the previous 2 decades here in the desert. A Super Bowl appearance, division titles, another conference championship appearance are all fantastic. But they don't really matter when things start to pile up like they have. When a team is losing and they find themselves in the headlines for all the wrong reasons, fans eventually will turn on them. Just ask the Suns. You want more hometown fans in State Farm Stadium on a Sunday? It's not about limiting the number of tickets that you can sell to fans that aren't Cardinals fans or making those people that are buying tickets prove that they're actually Cardinals fans. What it's about is giving the hometown fans in Arizona something to be proud of and something to root for on and off the field. Because another failed report card or bad publicity is going to mean you're going to have a lot more than summer school to worry about. There's going to be hell to pay because your players and your fans are going to turn on you. But maybe that's just my Southwest bias. On the other side of the break, former Cardinals wide receiver Britton Golden joins me to talk about what he experienced as a member of the Cardinals and why it's so important for the players to have their needs met here. You've seen those white cars out there, the Jaguars driving around with the cameras on the side, and you've probably wondered, okay, I've heard about Waymo, but what is it really about? If you have not ridden in a Waymo, I highly, highly recommend it. It is a completely autonomous vehicle that is one of the safest experiences I've had. And I love Waymo, right? I don't get to drive in a Jaguar very often, but when I do, it's because of Waymo. You get in, it's you. It's not a ride share. You don't have to share it with some rando you don't know. You get to get in there. You get to put on your music. You get to enjoy a ride and take care of whatever you need to. You want to read a book? You want to just sit there in silence? You can, because Waymo takes you from point A to point B, and it's safe and affordable. Over 150,000 trips per week across San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Phoenix is what they do. Waymo is the first company to serve a fully autonomous ride with no human behind the wheel, and they've been doing it since 2015. Waymo has over 40 million miles of real-world driving experience, which could take you from here to the moon if you had a freeway between here and the moon. So download the Waymo One app today and ride today. You won't regret it. Time to tell you about PHNX Raceway. I wasn't a big NASCAR fan. I'm going to admit that. No shame in me admitting that until last year I went out to PHNX Raceway and experienced it firsthand. Not only is the venue unbelievable, it's in the Estrella Mountains, and I did not know it was out there until I went out last year, and I was blown away by how picturesque it is to go out there and watch a NASCAR event. And then I was even more floored by the event itself, and getting to ride in a pace car on the track was insane. And if you want to experience the PHNX Raceway, go out there for the Shriners Children 500 at PHNX Raceway, March 7th through the 9th. It is going to be a good time as 40 drivers compete against the likes of Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, and the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series champion Joey Logano. It's the best-in-class fan experience for the whole family. Get your tickets now at PHNXRaceway.com.
It's one of those things where you can continue to tell the public that you're doing everything you can and everything you're trying to do to get those grades up and try to make it a better place. But let's just be honest. You're ranked last every single year. You don't have a place that's desirable for free agents to want to come to. And you wonder why you can't get big names to come through. You're going to have to bite the bullet and spend a little money. Like the facilities, honestly, if you're going to go through it, they revamped them in 2015. And they're still, I mean, you're looking at high school type facilities. There's high schools out here. We're not even talking about those high schools, those $70 million high schools they're building in Texas, right? High schools, right? And you got that. You're supposed to be the top level of your sport. Top level. It's billionaires that own these teams. And you can see the ones that invest money into their teams, and you can see the ones who don't. And you're starting to see a trend of when you invest in the team, when you invest in facilities and stuff like that, you attract big name free agents, players, right? You attract those type of guys. You got guys that, they want to come out here. You live in Phoenix, Arizona. Let's be honest, right? There's 3 months out of the year where you're going to sweat a little bit. Outside of that, this is one of the most desirable locations in the country, especially as an athlete. So until he decides to spend money, he's going to constantly be and look at 32nd.
Yeah, I mean, how important from a player's perspective, and obviously you were there as a wide receiver. How important is the family side of it? Because they continue to rank poorly in the way families are treated, and I assume that's family facilities and different things that are provided on game days and whatnot. How important is that to a player as well?
Well, you got to think, especially players that have families, right? When they have kids and wives and, whatever it is that want to come to games, they want to be in an environment where it's their family, right? They don't have to do too much interacting with anybody else where they're not bothered. They can be able to get from point A to point B to the family section after the game when there's not a lot of just traffic going through. And even when you talk about like practices, right? If you have the open walkthroughs and there's not a lot of stuff for families out here. They don't do a lot of things outside of really just a family section and game day stuff for your family. And like I said, the guys that have families and the guys that are bringing their kids and their wives to these games, it's important to people. It's important to those guys to be able to have a safe environment for their families to be there and also to be able to enjoy and see where their dad works.
The locker room was one of the things on this survey as well that didn't play well. You've been in the locker room at State Farm Stadium. Does that surprise you compared to some of these newer stadiums that are coming online?
No, it doesn't surprise me one bit. The Like I said earlier, the locker room, I can guarantee you could walk into Chandler High School's locker room and it is probably 10 times better than what the Arizona Cardinals are getting dressed in for practice and stuff. So it's something that's been a problem since I was there, since I got there. I mean, that locker room when I showed up in 2013 was atrocious. It was just bad. Like there was nothing good about it. It looked like it had been built in 1924 and they just didn't do anything else after that. Like I think it was the Seahawks and the Patriots Super Bowl when they didn't hand the ball off to Marshawn Lynch. Well, I had a buddy that was playing for the Patriots, and they used our facilities for the Super Bowl week. And he FaceTimed me while I was sitting on my couch at the house, and he said, "This is what you guys practice in and go to every day." And I said, "Yes, this is our facility." And he goes, "This is almost embarrassing."
Wow.
He said, "You guys are an NFL football team, and this is the locker room that you guys have to come, and this is where you spend most of your time." And I said, "Yeah, it's it's bad." And it got, like I said, it got redone in 2015, and it's nicer. Don't get me wrong, the lockers are nicer, the area is nicer, but when you go to places, when you leave here and go to a place like I went to New York, I walked in that locker room, and it feels like a locker room. Right? It's just the facilities are better, the lockers are better. Like there's everywhere else, especially all these places that are building new facilities, right? The locker rooms, all that stuff. They're nicer. They have stuff. A lot of these teams have a players' lounge. Cardinals don't have a players' lounge, right? In between meetings and practice and stuff like that, you're just sitting in your locker or sitting in the training room or the new, I guess, cafeteria they built in 2015ish too. It's those are your only places to go hang out. There's no when I was in Chicago, they had an entire players lounge, TVs, Xboxes, whatever. Guys could play FIFA. They had chairs you could relax in, take a nap, ping pong tables, like just a getaway, right? When you're in OTAs, when you're in training camp, when you're doing stuff like that, you have an area that's just you, that's just for players, and there's nothing like that out here.
How frustrating is it? Because players obviously know what the ownership is bringing in terms of cash flow from a team, and obviously players get paid well. But they'd want that reinvested in things that they're spending their time in from ownership, right?
Oh, I 100% agree to that, right, guys? The whole pay scale of what you're getting paid to play, a game, right? That's beyond the point right here. Guys understand that. We know we're getting paid well to play this game, right? But at the same time, like you said, we know how much money you're pulling in, even if it's just from the foot. We're not worried about what your hands dipped in, you know, in your other financial departments, whatever you're doing in life, like football cash flow, the stadium, concessions, ticket prices. We know you're pulling in a lot of money a year off of this, right? And the fact that we have to come to work in this facility that has, I mean, honestly, they should just bulldoze the entire thing and redo it. If we're being honest, like, you made your bed in this situation by not putting the money in to do this earlier. But it's the same thing. Like, guys know how much money you have and how much money you're spending on other things, and there's a reason why you can't keep big name players here, because you don't want to pay them that money. And then when you do pay them that money, you get a year into it and want them to restructure or take pay cuts, right? So you're known, and you've been known. The entire family has been known since they've owned the team of being not wanting to spend money, being cheap, trying to find the easiest way out. And like I said, from a standpoint, guys are not going to want to come out here because they know, one, you don't want to pay anybody. Two, you don't really want to put that type of money into the facilities. And it's like, you want to have pride. It's like a home, right? You want to have pride in your own home. So it's got to be at that same point. I don't want to come home, and my house is it's trash and it's ugly and it's dirty, and I have the money to fix it, but I'll patch it with something right here and then we'll deal with it later. It's kind of what that feels like with the organizational standpoint, with the facilities here in Arizona.
You have any good stories about your time in the facility? Anything funny or unique that you ran into?
Probably nothing that could be said on air, but we had a great time. I will give you that. We had a lot of fun in it.
Well, you and I will have to talk about that off air at some point. He's Britton Golden, former Cardinals wide receiver and part of our pre and post game here on PHNX Cardinals. Britton, thanks for taking a few minutes with me.
I appreciate it, Espo.
That's it for this edition of Southwest Bias. You can follow me on Twitter at Espo, and we'll talk to you next time. Ahoy, hoy.